Sarah Carlson.
Here.
Commissioner Barbara Colhat.
Here.
Commissioner Donzel Leggett is absent. Commissioner Judy Dunbar.
Here.
Commissioner Jen Welbert.
Here.
Commissioner Robert Kim. Here. Commissioner Kaylee Haga.
Here.
And Commissioner Lisa White.
Here.
So we're only missing Robert, or I'm sorry, not Robert, Donzel Leggett.
Okay. I hope everyone had a chance to read through the agenda that Nate sent out the other day. Does anybody have any changes to it tonight?
I move for adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The agenda is adopted for tonight. Now we'll have our guest presentation time of the meeting. And tonight we're going to welcome Chief Scott Knight, and he's going to talk to us about the body-worn cameras for the police department.
That's correct.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your welcome. It's good to see you all. It's been a while since I've seen some of you, and I don't know if I've met every one of you. So thanks for having me. I am here tonight to talk to you about our body-worn cameras. And I don't know your agenda, and I don't want to monopolize it. But if there's time, and if you're of the persuasion, I had a couple of things I'd like to inform you about, separate and apart from the camera issue. But that can happen another time, too, depending upon how busy you are this evening. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you know about how long it will take for the
About
camera?
5 hours.
5 hours? Okay, well, you know.
The camera thing will move pretty swiftly because some of it, most of it, you already know.
Okay.
The others are just bookmarks to get something on your radar, and I'm not going to go in depth on those things.
Okay.
So let's start with the cameras.
We'll hit the gong if it goes too long.
Please do
okay?
that. Please do that. Yeah.
Sure.
They have resurrected the Gong Show. Did you know that? Many years ago, it was on TV. They
Yeah.
brought it back. I don't watch it, but I know it's out there.
Yeah.
So, okay, anyway, I've given you this packet. It is all things body-worn cameras. I had intended to meet with you earlier, and schedules, life got in the way, and I didn't. What's important about this is setting the table. Statute requires that before a police agency purchases or deploys this technology in the field, we have to take public input, get public opinion. And we have to do that in 3 forms, either electronically, set up an independent, separate email system, but we also took it through our general email nonetheless. We had to accept comment via U.S. mail, and I had to go before the council and set the table for them, and then anyone who was present would come forward and give their opinion about this. It was not a hearing, it was a listening session. Once we accomplished all 3 of those things, we were clear with the statute to deploy our cameras. I say deploy, we hadn't purchased, and we haven't purchased because we're in a 1-year free pilot trial period. So we have no monetary investment in the equipment or the technology at this point. But we couldn't deploy until we met those 3 statutory requirements. It had been my intent to meet with you, just to advise you, about the same time as we accomplished those other 3 things, which we put to bed on the 18th of June. It didn't work out that I could see you prior. So most of this, I think you may already know, either through the Chaska Herald, through our website, the city website, or some other medium. So I am not going to belabor the point and go through minute detail. But if you'll notice in the packet I've given you, something you haven't seen yet because it is brand new, is a 1-month recap of where we are to date after having rolled them out. This is new information. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's brief. The meat is in the 2nd paragraph, and it talks about how much we've used the cameras, what types of uses, and how they are important for us documenting any adversarial contacts, any evidentiary needs, and those sorts of things. The next tab is the white paper that I wrote, setting the table again, laying the foundation, giving the history about cameras, data privacy, needs, other department uses, other agencies who are now deploying this equipment, and so forth. That one is pretty extensive. It also goes into a lengthy Q&A that we know the average citizen members of the public wonder about these things, and those things are answered in this white paper also. The next tab is a section called View, Don't View, and it discusses when an officer would or would not potentially view video footage following a critical incident being defined by an officer's use of deadly force that caused a death or great bodily harm. A lot of that is governed by statute, and we address that through statute and our labor bargaining unit in that tab. And then the final tab speaks to technology we have employed for a long time, but it is the policy that covers our in-car cameras, the squad videos, that are pretty commonly seen, usually when there's been maybe a pursuit of a vehicle, or a vehicle is stopped and you're observing the exchange with the officer up at the car that they have stopped and talking to the driver, that kind of thing. So this is it. Again, I'm hoping you already knew most of it. This is the data that will bring you up to speed on pieces maybe you didn't know. But going back to the first tab, the 1 month out report, the recap, we're very pleased. This is going better than we thought that it would in terms of our uses and the information we have been capturing, the data we've been saving, and we expect that it will do nothing but continue to be evolving to be an important part of the equipment that we use. And I've said this term before, but I believe that this is a quantum leap in community policing and transparency. It takes away, it's not the end-all be-all, but it certainly takes away any nebulous he said, she said, she said, she said. I mean, there it is. You can look at it and come to a determination. I can tell you that there are currently cases, very fresh cases, locally and a little broader than that in the news. I can't speak to the details on those, but I can tell you there is video there, and it's a very important video. Video for everyone, when the time is right, to see and benefit from viewing. I'm happy to take any questions about the cameras if you have any.
Can you talk a little bit about like the footage that you capture, like how long you keep it and how
Sure.
it's stored and things like that?
It is stored, firstly it's encrypted, it goes to the cloud. No one can access it, not even the vendor can access it. No one can but us, right? It is stored potentially for 3 or 6 years, depending upon what it is and what statute requires. But we have the option of keeping it for as long as we choose beyond that. Sometimes we'll have a cold case. And in fact, we have a couple in my time here, and one is at least 30 years old. Had we had video at that time, we'd still have that video.
And where is it stored?
Well, now it's stored in the cloud and the vendor maintains it.
Okay.
So it's not in the building, so if we get a flood or if something burns down, we still have our evidence, our documentation.
Okay, and then if they say like you need to, you keep it for 6 years or
Yep.
whatever the statute is, if you want to keep it longer, does that just stay
Yep.
in the cloud?
It does, and it's ours. Even if we were to change, well, firstly, if we decide at the end of this pilot that we are not pleased with our vendor we are now using and want to go to another vendor, it's our data, it goes with us. We stay with the vendor, it's our data regardless. I mean, it's as long as, it's our data. It doesn't go anywhere, we can always access it.
Can a citizen access, not on their own, but can could I put in a request, I'd like to see the video from this incident that happened on such and such a day?
Absolutely. Now, though, depending upon what your role is, will determine what you can see or not see. If you want to see what went on in her house and you're no party to it, the answer is going to be no. One of the reasons that I held off on going to cameras for a long time was that under Minnesota law, under data privacy and public information, the statute was extremely unclear and in fact made any of that video public. So you could come to me and say, we know you were at her house last night. I'm requesting any film that you have. By law, I would have to give it to you. Now, we get called into many intensely private situations that have nothing to do with public safety. Maybe someone's having a disciplinary issue with a adolescent. I want to take the car tonight. No, you can't. Yes, I am. No, you can't. Well, we get called to support the right thing that's going on there. Well, it's nobody's business, right? You don't have any business seeing that if you're not a party to it. Prior, we would have had to give you that. My peers and I, along with sheriffs, went to our lawmakers and pointed this out. The law was changed, and now we can say, no, that's private data. It's her data. It's not your data, and you don't have any right to see it. So that, and then the rest of what you asked me about is explained in the packet.
Okay.
Yes.
Do the officers, can they turn it off then during their
The
shift?
officers are required to turn it on when they're having a citizens interaction.
Oh,
If they turn it off, they must articulate that they did and why in their report. Now, in the heat of the fray, jumping out of the car, they might forget to turn it on and turn it on later, or it just doesn't get turned on. They must document that. We audit the film, the performance of each officer. And if we see that out of 100 incidents, let's pick a number, out of 100 incidents, the majority of the officers are at 100 or 98 activations. And we have Officer X, who maybe has 3 activations and 97 no activations. Well, no, what does that tell us? That we have something we have to look at and address. Maybe it's training, maybe it's intentional, but we will know that that's happening and address that.
So can I follow up on that? So they're turning on the cameras for any call for service?
Anytime, well, they will turn it on if they think that it may become confrontational or adversarial. They have the option of turning it on prior if they think it would be helpful. I'm trying to think of a scenario where if they're just talking to you about your lost dog, they're not going to be turning it on.
Sure, I'm just thinking, I noticed in the policy that it says that you record 30 seconds of video beforehand before they would manually turn it on. That you have that set up so that you get that first 30 seconds,
Right.
even if they. And I'm curious. My husband has worked in law enforcement, and I'm curious.
Sure.
Given the potential for you to walk into a situation where you don't know what the dynamics are, why the decision was made that they wouldn't automatically, at a call for service, turn their camera on.
In most cases, it will be.
Okay.
And we have the option of, with the technology, of going beyond the 30 seconds. We could back it up 2 minutes prior.
Okay.
What comes in is data management and how much is being used and all that sort of thing.
Sure.
In most cases, it would be turned on, and maybe they realize, oh, this is where I'm talking about your lost dog. I don't need it on, right? So, yeah.
As
Well,
a s-
Chief Knight,
oh, excuse me.
go ahead.
As a citizen, Chief Knight, can I say to a police officer who stops me, do you have, although I have no idea why the police officer would stop me,
I don't either. I've known her for years.
but on the slim chance I should be stopped by a police officer, can I ask the officer, do you have your
Filming.
body camera on?
Yes, you may.
And may I also say, please turn your body camera off?
No, you may not.
Okay.
You may ask if it's on. You'll be told if it's on or off. You certainly may request to be turned off, but that doesn't mean the officer is honor bound or required by policy to do that.
Okay.
Well, Chief Knight, thank you for being here tonight and communicating with us personally. I know that you have made rounds with previous groups in the past, so I appreciate your time. Since deployment, I wonder if you had an opportunity to speak with other departments, perhaps Carver County Sheriffs or other law enforcement, about whether their experience with body cameras or whether they're thinking to go ahead with body cameras since Chaska is already experiencing with this right now.
Sure.
And I'm sure that you've done quite a bit of research beforehand, before deployment, especially with the tragic incident in Chaska. Has there been any discussion with different agencies of with how things are going, in which direction? Have there been any policy changes as to, since that incident, you're planning to take a pivot to another direction in any ways?
Firstly, and I'll take this in segments. Firstly, all the departments who are currently utilizing body-worn cameras are not looking back. They have found them to be a most helpful tool for a number of reasons. So they're continuing ahead. The Sheriff's Office, Carver County Sheriff's Office, currently is not. However, they are monitoring our experience. They have benefit of what you have and what we've done, and they have that, and they've been watching. I met with the sheriff just today on a few things. I can tell you, without going into, without speaking for him or going into detail in regard to current events, I know that that they are giving this technology a expedited examination.
Thank you.
In reviewing your first month of information, is this consistent, are your numbers consistent with other similarly sized police departments who have adopted the use of body cameras? Do you have that benchmark?
No, I don't have that
Okay.
benchmark. I can't tell you that. And in some respects, this might sound weird, but I'm kind of glad I don't, because that tells me that we are operating within the thoroughly researched policy that we have set forward. And we're in compliance with this policy that was also approved by the League of Minnesota Cities. So viewing it through the lens of our desire to be transparent and following the established, accepted best practices, we're right there.
Excellent.
I'm not going to let another department's use, non-use, overuse, underuse govern our deployment.
Okay. Fair.
What is the cost once your year is up for those 20 cameras?
The cost of the cameras itself is nominal. It's really nothing. The cost comes in data storage, management, encryption, redaction. Let's go back to the scenario where you are requesting of me footage that you have a right to see. But maybe these three people happen to be there. They have nothing to do with what happened, and they don't want to be in any footage that you get. We have to redact them, you know, the digitalized, so you can't tell who they are.
Yeah.
So that is part of the expense of the data management. What we have learned so far is that with the body cameras alone, we would ultimately be paying less than what we're paying right now for our in-car camera data storage. And the reason for that is the technology. Right now, we store our in-car camera data in-house on servers here, and it's a lot of data. We are hoping, one of the things we're going to look at in our study was, well, maybe do we still need in-car cameras if the officers have body cameras? What we've already learned in our 1 month study is you get a lot of steering wheel, you don't get a lot about the windshield. the out the windshield camera view is oftentimes critically important. So at one time we thought, well, maybe we'll do it with the in-car and just run with the body cameras. We are pretty convinced we are not going to do that. But by looking at these numbers even further, if we go to in-car cameras, the new technology, the cloud data storage I've spoken of, with our in-car cameras, and move that over to this same vendor, we will spend less money on those two systems than what we're spending now on just the in-car cameras. It's not cheap. We're talking about a lot of money over a 5-year period. But when you break that down annually, it's not that huge. It's not a millstone. And when you look at what we have come to see in uses around the nation, the value far outweighs any potential cost.
I think when we look at this technology, it's starting to be, as we were thinking about bringing this into our police force and having them deploy it and at least testing it, it's becoming more and more viewed as the norm. And we got a lot of question about, why aren't you already doing this? Or we thought that you were already doing this. And so you think about the cost. You also need to think about the risk of not doing it. And, are we as a community meeting expectations by not doing it? And are we as a community exposing ourselves to risk on both sides? So, whether it's the police department or it's the residents or other citizens who they're interacting with, if we don't have that video evidence to provide that level of transparency and clarity around interactions, then it becomes that he said, she said, or whoever's involved, and there's a lot of other ramifications that can come out of that, where you never really get to the bottom of what the situation was, and there's cost to that too. So those are, you
And
gotta
the
look at that whole
reason
equation.
For my question really was because I see this as a no-brainer. I think it's a necessity, and I just don't want the cost to be prohibitive
Thank you.
of it getting approval from the city or whoever you need to get it from.
Thank you. I agree with you, but that's probably obvious.
You described this as part of your community policing strategy. I know you're only a month in, but what has the reaction been of
It's
the
been great.
constituents?
People are extremely supportive. Facebook feedback, our systems for getting initial input, it's been nothing but positive. The closest thing that I would say was a negative, which I think is which I don't take as a negative, but someone thought we should absolutely have them because we need to watch those police.
Oh,
And I don't know if that was a local responder. I mean, that was on the Chaska Herald's Facebook page, and you never know where these people herald from, right? They could be in Indiana, they could be in Tokyo, right? We don't know. But that's the closest thing to a negative, if you might call that a negative, that we received. So after you've had the opportunity to look at this, you can contact me at any time down the road and ask questions. And if you'd like me to come back month 2, month 3, or 6 months out and tell you where we are and what we're finding, I'm happy to do that also. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to?
Well, if
Touch
I
on
haven't,
your other things? Sure.
I don't want to overstay my welcome. I don't want to. So a couple of quick remarks.
Sure.
Recently, I know we're all busy and you couldn't, but I belong to a group of my peers through a conduit of the local FBI. It's called Craig Civil Rights Advisory Group. We meet quarterly on varying topics. I had the honor of hosting them here recently at the community center. I know you couldn't come, and I understand that, but you're going to get another chance. The topic that we had and the presentation that we had was from a Holocaust survivor. She lives in St. Louis Park. She was the pillar subject of a documentary which we saw, and then she spoke to us about her experience. Horrific. as we know, but you don't know until you hear from a survivor. We read, we've studied history. There are people, unfortunately, who don't know perhaps what we have learned over time. There are people who suggest that maybe it was a hoax, which just gives me pause. Nonetheless, well, I can tell you I don't know any of those people, but what is important is that not only we remember, but our kids have the benefit of knowing and hearing and learning. And these survivors are in their late 80s and 90s now, and just like our World War II vets, we won't have the blessing of their company for a very long time. So there's an organization called Transfer of Memory. And if any of you were at the airport during Super Bowl, there's a photographic memorial historical display that they had there that I'm working to bring here to our community center so that it'll be there for a month and people can come and see and learn. In addition to that, local survivors on different days and different times would make themselves available to have a Q&A forum and talk about their experience. And you can see them and meet them, and our kids can learn from them. I'm very excited about this. This is in its embryonic stage, but I've met with these people. I met with Marshall at the community center. We're talking about the appropriate venue. We're talking about appropriate timing. And as this moves forward, I not only want you to know about it, but I would love to have you on board as partners. I think that this is a vital thing that we need to bring here and keep going.
I think we would love to have more information when you have it, so that we can definitely discuss how we can be involved. Yeah.
I come prepared. I should have handed this to you when I handed you your thing, but you know what I've learned over time? If you hand out everything at once, people look at everything and not what you want to talk about at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
This looks good.
Now, at the risk of overstaying my welcome, I have one more thing, if you would allow me.
Yeah, just a quick thing, right?
A quick thing.
Yes.
It has to do with these three books. Know these books. The Sun Does Shine, written by a fellow named Arthur Ray Hinton. He goes by Ray. He was on death row in Alabama in the 80s for 30 years, not only for a crime he did not commit, but because of manufactured evidence and a complete disregard for our justice system. The fellow who defended him, and many like him, his name is Brian Stevenson. He wrote a book in 2014. This book just came out, by the way. This book was written in 2014, Just Mercy. You're familiar. This is a book we all should read, our kids should read. And a book that is just out, The Blood of Emmett Till. We think we know that story. We don't know that story until we read this book. Read this book. I'm working on bringing the authors here to speak to my peers, and again, I'm hoping the community, because people have no idea, and it isn't something that happened post-Reconstruction. It isn't something that happened pre-Civil War only, and it isn't something that had an end date and we all moved on. It's not. And if we don't read and study and know and hear from the people who were on the wrong side of, I can't even say justice, we're going to continue to have trouble in our country. So that's it. And I'll answer any questions unless you'd like me to say, oh, leave.
Does anyone have questions?
All right, well, I appreciate you letting me be here and go on and on and on and on. I know you weren't planning my extras, my add-ons.
They were like dessert, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right,
okay.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
right.
you very much.
You're very
Yeah.
welcome. Thank
And we'll definitely be interested in hearing more about when this, the Holocaust memory exhibit will be coming and.
I will keep you posted. I'll gladly keep you, and you're gonna be more than posted, because you can help market and advise the community that we're doing this, and it's coming.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
You bet. Would you all mind if I go out the back door?
No.
Go ahead.
It's easier with this box.
You got it all?
Yeah.
You're moving out?
I'm moving out. Thank you.
Okay, so now we will move on to the treasurer's report for tonight. Nate?
We do have approving the minutes before the treasurer's
Oh.
report, so I don't want to,
I skipped
Forget that one.
Okay. Okay, so everyone has had a chance to read through the minutes from June 28th. And are there any changes or additions people need to add?
I move we accept the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor of approving the June 28th minutes?
Aye.
Opposed?
I abstain. I wasn't here, so I can.
Okay. All right, so the minutes are approved, and now we can do the treasurer's report.
all right. So, in June, we had a balance of $1,797, $1,797. So since then, we have paid $96.27 for the pens that will be available as giveaways at the River City Days booth. We have outstanding, and these are estimates because I have not seen invoices yet for these items. So outstanding, 325 estimated for the fans, $66 for the tattoos, and $38 for the new banner. So that's a total outstanding of $429. So adding the $429 to the $96.27 that's been paid, we have a balance of approximately $1,271.73. So I'll gladly update you all as we get those invoices and pay those, hopefully in time for the next meeting.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk about River City Days, which is tomorrow. Let's start with talking about some booth things. Before we talk about the giveaways, I just would like to mention that Nate has included a map in this packet that we got tonight. The key on the map is different than what I have been told that we will have for our booth number. So the Human Rights Commission will now be at booth number 40, which is over on the left side on the 4th Street side of this page, next to the thing that says 3C. You'll notice there's a couple different 40s on this map. I'm not sure why. But the one that we want is the one that has like a square around it. And Nate will be at the park tomorrow morning setting up, I think.
Yep.
You can put it on the document camera if you want, the map.
Oh, is that going to be useful?
I don't know.
I think we're
I
okay.
just wanted to point out to
Yeah.
them where to go.
Yeah.
So
Thanks,
thank
Mike.
you, though.
It's a small park.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
find it, we'll find
Yeah.
it. And
Just
and
look
given-
for us.
Yeah. You know, I think given the apparent changes that have happened since this key was put out, and I'll be sure to verify tomorrow when we're setting up the tent, but I will be
Okay.
I will be at the park tomorrow. We'll set up the tent wherever we're directed to do it. For now, we'll assume it's at this number 40 on the map. But I will bring over the giveaways and the handouts that I've pulled together. I'll bring over an easel, because I understand there's a display board that has been put together. I'll make sure.
Yeah.
Well, there's a
We need two now.
2 easels, okay.
Okay.
I'll try to bring 2 easels.
What time? Do you want help?
Oh, I don't know when I'll be there. Sometime between when I get here in the morning and when I leave. So I don't know how the day is going to go for sure, but I would guess it'd be sometime in the morning is when I'll be over there. So yeah, I'll get all the stuff over there. My thought is it might be best for whoever's, staffing or volunteering at the booth first to maybe be there to help set things up. I don't know.
Barb and
I can try to give it a stab, but I don't know that I'll knock it out of the park for you guys the way you have in mind.
So Barb and Lisa are signed up for 4 o'clock. I also plan to be there then, so I can help set up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know this is a couple of spaces down the agenda, but since we're talking about it, I was just looking at it. Friday, there's not that much going on in River City Days, even at night. I don't think in the past years there was no other booth or other groups in their booth on Saturday nights. So I don't know if we want to rethink that or if 2 people just really want to be there on Saturday night by themselves in the park. That's something to consider, I think. And same thing as Sunday, although, and Sunday, that's because on that side of the lawn, there's going to be a car show and other activities, so all the booths will have to be moved anyways. And most people just pack up and leave on Saturday night. So I'm guessing if the previous years is any indication, there will be really no other groups or organizations on Sunday, except maybe some political ads, maybe perhaps. But other than that, there will be no other groups or organizations on Saturday night or Sunday.
Yeah, I can speak to the city has a booth and that we'll have out there Friday night. And the city's booth is going to really sort of focus on the topic of the City Square West redevelopment. So Friday night, we've got our consultant team who's working on that project. We'll be staffing that booth. I'm not exactly sure how late they'll be going Friday. Saturday, it's going to be a mix of staff and council members that will be out there. I think we've got it set up to start something like 10 o'clock and then end around 5 o'clock. And then after that, the intent would be that the city's booth would be, picked up and sort of put away for the weekend. So that's how the city's booth is approaching it, but,
I think what we had discussed when we were talking about the scheduling too is that when it comes to Saturday night or later on Sunday, the people who are there at the last shift kind of use their judgment. So, we have a shift from 4 to 7, and let's say people are still hanging out, 4 o'clock, and then when it gets closer to the time that the band is starting and people really kind of fade away from the booths, well, if no one's coming to the booth, there's no reason to sit there and do nothing. But we just want that option in case there are people that are interested still in stopping by.
That we're having 2 people per booth instead of 1, and some of the times are overlapping. For example, 12 to 3, 2 to 5, 4 to 7.
Right, that was to account for if people have to leave early or if they want to come early, so you aren't stuck there for the entire 3 hours. We would have, people could go walk around, they could take breaks if they needed to. If it was busier, then we would like to have 2 people so that they don't feel overwhelmed. And then if it was very slow, you would have someone to talk to so that you aren't just sitting there.
Then you could take turns maybe walking around,
Yeah.
if it is really slow or something.
Sure.
I think this is the first time I may not be at the booth in 5 years. I have 2 kids who are going to be in 3 performances, so I can't miss that.
Okay. Well, if you do have some time, there are a couple slots open still. So you're welcome to come. I plan on being around most of the weekend. I'm not signed up for every spot, but I would definitely come step in if anybody needs it or something.
I mean, the meat of it is going to be Saturday morning until about 4 or 5 o'clock. Friday night, Sunday, again, past years, there's really been no traffic. But just as importantly, since we've spent so much energy and time and money into this, what are we going to look at as far as metrics to see if this was a success? I mean, we can talk and say, like the powwow was a rousing, tremendous success, but we don't even have the numbers or estimates of how many people attended. So I think it would be good for us to, since we've been talking about this since February, and now we're here, which is good. But have you thought about what we want out of this? What is the metric? Okay, where we can say, oh yeah, this was a rousing success or tremendous success.
Well, I think part of what we had decided was that we would like to have like an email sign up, find out if people are interested in finding out more about what the Human Rights Commission is doing, or give us ideas about things they would like the commission to focus on.
And not only about the commission, but about the homelessness and resources they can go to and look at that. And,
Right,
maybe even if we hook a few more volunteers up at those places or with us, I think that would be great. And just make the city more aware that we exist.
Yeah, I know that's the intent, but how would we gauge that? How would we
How did you gauge
measure
in
that?
previous years?
Surveys, feedback. That's a good way to do it.
You had a survey at the booth?
Not at the booth, no, for other events. For the booth, it's a booth. So, no, our experience is that people would stop by, grab the trinkets, and then walk away or say a few words. If we're lucky, maybe 1 out of 100 would really engage in a conversation about human rights or what we do or the issues in the city or county or the state of the country and so on. That's been our experience.
I think part of what we were focusing on for the theme of our booth was trying to keep it very local, keep it community-wide, talking about homelessness in Chaska, in Carver County, to make it like, this is not a huge issue for other people to deal with if this is happening in my neighborhood. And so hopefully, with some of the things that I know Judy will show us later, that these are engaging people and going, wow, I didn't know that about Chaska or something. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that will spark conversations and we can talk about, what resources are available, what ways you could help if you're fortunate enough to be able to help with things.
I understand all that, but what I'm saying is that how can we measure the totality of...
Do you think a survey would be helpful?
No, since she asked how we measure other events, but I was talking about events, not the booth.
Okay.
But I was just thinking, since we spent so much energy onto this, some way to gauge the overall effectiveness of this would be good.
I have a couple thoughts. I guess one would be you could keep a tally of the number of people that you interact with at the booth. Without historical context, it's going to be hard to say what that means, but at least you would have, for this year, how many people you were able to engage with and talk to at the booth. So maybe that's one metric you could collect. Another thing that you've all decided to try a little bit differently this year and put a little bit more focus on the Human Rights Award. So that's an item that we've printed out the nomination forms for.
And something we can talk about.
You could count how many of those you give out, and hopefully, this isn't a metric you would get right away, but later down the road, hopefully that does result in some nominations. So that would be a way that you can maybe get an indicator of some impact of the booth. Certainly, the booth isn't the only place, and that this is something a little bit later that I'll be talking about. Our marketing strategy that we've put together now for the award. So hopefully that strategy produces some nominations too. It might be hard to determine where those nominations come from, but it's part of a broader effort that you're all trying to move the needle on a little bit too. So maybe that's an indicator that you could look at some point.
Yeah, I think those are good suggestions. I mean, I just don't want us to come back here next meeting or 2 meetings and say this was a rousing success. I mean, something tangible, you know, maybe somebody contacted us through one of the flyers or the award nomination form, somebody has actual suggestions and things like that. So, I mean, those things are real tangible. You know, when we talk about the Power event, I don't know if any of us had a chance to go, but we don't even know how many attendees were there at the event. And to say that, you know, it's not only about the numbers, but if you organize an event and put time and energy, you know, we should at least know an estimate of how many people.
I think the
were there.
powwow was a different situation though, because we agreed to be supporters of that with providing the food and water for them. None of us were able to attend it, and so we said we can at least offer to help out in this way so we can show our support to the event. So I think that by hearing that it was a rousing success, that was just because of what the organizers had reported to Donzel after the event had happened, since none of us could be there.
I don't see this as I mean, I understand, you know, that we want to measure where we're putting our efforts and our money, but this is our community. This is the community event. All we are doing is showing the community that we're here, and I think it would be a shame if we decided we didn't want to put a booth in, because we are part of the city.
But
And
nobody
I'll
mentioned
say,
about not
I'll
putting the
say
booth.
last year, I didn't know there was a Chaska Human Rights. So even people that don't stop or sign up for anything have now seen the banner and the booth, and they'll think, oh, I didn't know we had that.
Right.
And it will be in the back of their minds. So there isn't any way to measure that, but I think it's part of supporting our community who supports us.
Barbara?
Nate, can we still use the city phone number? At one time, we were able to use the city phone number to refer people who talked about domestic abuse, for instance, and then you give them the phone number for the state commission.
The city phone number is on the flyers, the yellow flyers.
It is on the
Okay.
yellow flyer. I guess I would recommend anyone who's experiencing domestic abuse should contact the police department and start there. Calling City Hall probably isn't good.
I
mean,
don't think-
certainly we're
Right.
going to refer them to the appropriate place, but
But
Oh, yeah.
if they were calling about a human rights issue, the number that's on the flyer
Okay.
is to City
Well,
Hall.
then my next question is, whoever answers that city phone, does the person who answered know about the state number if there are questions?
you know, I guess I would have to train the staff at the front desk to know about that number.
Would you be?
The alternative to that, though, is folks know that I'm the staff person who chairs, or who works with the Human Rights Commission, and so staff at the front desk would know to refer them to me and send them to me.
Yeah, I think that's important because I've done this in the past.
Sure, okay.
And then I want to say that I agree with Kim about the number of people who come on Sunday.
And Friday night.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with him on that. Very minimal, or
And-
nobody.
And I think that could be the case. I have been at other booths at River City Days where I volunteered at those times, and actually some of my best conversations have been at those times because it's not as crowded. You can spend some time talking. People aren't feeling as rushed to get to everything through the crowds. and I've really enjoyed those times. I think it's worth the shot, because if there's someone who happens to stop by only at that time, then, you know, we might as well be there to talk with them.
And overall, you know, just to be clear, you know, I never said that we should not have a booth. In fact, this commission should always have a booth at Chaska River City Days. We have been there for years, and as long as this commission is active, we will have a booth at Chaska River City Days. That is automatic. I can't even imagine a reason why we should not.
I have a question about the stuff. So I just picture the stuff now on the booth, like on Friday night, and then Barb and I go to leave.
Yeah, I have that question.
On Friday night,
Yeah, because
You
I
are
think
there
I'm,
till-
I'm Saturday morning
So-
too, so then I can just bring it
Yeah.
back Saturday morning.
I guess I would leave that up to your discretion. I can tell you that the city's booth, we have fidget spinners, and I know fidget spinners are all the rage, so, you know, hopefully we can maintain or calm among the crowds that are gonna be coming, but, so.
is that a commercial there?
Yeah, right. The fidget spinners that we will be handing out at the city's booth, and this is consistent with the past, we've always just kind of put underneath the table at the end of the night, trusted that folks would, you know, be honorable in their ways. And you know, there is going to be a large presence of booze and other things that will remain in the park overnight. The police department is well aware of that. They'll be monitoring the park. So if you feel like you want to take them home, you know, the items home with you, you're certainly able to do that. And that would be probably the safest thing to do, but, you know, the city, we've
If we
typically
just
just
put
left
it in
things
a
there.
box or a bin,
So,
you know,
Underneath or
tuck
something.
it away, then it should be easily kept for the morning
Yeah.
too.
And, I can't picture how big it is, but I have like baskets or something I can bring so they're not sitting on it. Or do we just want like 5 pens out on the thing at a time and we just keep?
I think we'll figure it out when we get there.
Okay.
We'll kind of see what we have and how much space we have.
Sounds good.
It's really easy. You know.
I'm glad I'm with you the first night.
Lisa, do you want to talk about, like, first, what we're getting, or what we're
What we
handing
got?
out?
Is
Yeah.
everything
We're
here?
good.
Got everything, yep. Nada's the one who's probably seen
yeah,
it.
sure.
I
So
haven't seen it
we've
yet
got
either.
pens, we've got those foldable fans have arrived, and temporary tattoos. So those are all items that are available. We've also printed out quite a large number of the flyers that's been updated. So those are all set to go on yellow paper and cut and are being handed out. And then in addition to that, I printed out, I think it was something like 100 nomination forms for the Human Rights Commission Award. So all those things are available, you know, and they could be available for future activities too if we don't end up using them all. I'm kind of guessing we probably
Will
won't.
you
There's
have a
also
couple
band-
chairs?
Excuse me?
Will you have a couple chairs?
I have a
Wait.
couple of chairs I can bring.
Yeah.
And just leave them there for the weekend too, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think around City Hall. We don't have a lot of foldable chairs or, you know,
I can bring a
outdoor
couple
chairs, so-
folding chairs too, Barb.
Yeah.
Somebody.
I had a question are you still planning to bring the plaque of the previous winners?
I could bring that, yeah.
Okay, and would you be able to bring it like in the afternoon? We don't want it sitting out there when you set up,
Sure,
so,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And that may be an item you'd want to think about. in a
No,
little
that
bit.
will not stay overnight. I think that'd be nice to have so people see what
Yeah.
kind of groups and individuals have gotten the award before.
Sure. Will you be at the church tomorrow?
Yes,
Okay, maybe I'll drop it off in the morning, as an option too, if that would be.
9 to 2.
Okay, all right.
See the boards?
Yes, we would love to see the boards. Our
Well-
artists and residents worked hard on the boards.
Sarah and I put these together, and we had a discussion
course. It'd be like sandwich boards.
Sarah did all the legwork of getting all the brochures. And so anyway, we have some facts and figures of what it costs. To afford housing here in Chaska. And then just a couple quotes that we found and figures that we found. We tried to keep it simple.
So we kind of thought these would be conversation starters. So folks walking by would say, oh, what do you have to do with hunger? Well, you know, that's something that we're concerned about here in our community. And we found out that it costs $800 a month for a family of 4 to be thrifty, really thrifty. So, and it costs at least $78,000 to afford an apartment. So, I think we just thought these were conversation starters. Not the be and end it all, include everything about what we do, but just opportunities to initiate discussion, questions, dialogue.
And just to clarify, it's $78,000 to afford a home, almost $37,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment.
And that would be the income one would need to achieve in order to, okay. Yep, so they're not paying $78,000 for the apartment.
I just grabbed a number on the
Yep.
corner of my eye.
Yep, oh, I understand.
Thank you so much.
They look great.
Yeah, thank you a lot for doing this.
Sarah thought we'd get an A.
You do.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, and then she also obtained, I've got a bag full here of brochures from various places. that
Different
we have around the
resources.
table for people to grab.
Great. I was going to mention too, I spoke with Corey at lunch. He's going to give us a stack of some of their flyers. This is the older version. Their new one was coming today from the printer, which will have just a couple different things on it. There's a Spanish interpreter that they're going to put her number on here, and some other ways that are a little more accessible for people to reach out to lunch. But the flyer on one side is about need help, and then it talks about some different, some numbers or the website for lunch or something. On the other side, it says make a difference, and it's for anyone who would like to volunteer or help serve lunch in some way to help them with their organization, so that we can help community members who need it. So I told Corey we'd put a few of these out at our booth, and then if we do get in-depth questions, they will have a booth too, so we can certainly send them over there and they can give them more information. And then Kaylee, I had a question. Did you ever pick some things up from the state?
They were supposed to come via inter-office mail, and they haven't shown up, so I'm just gonna go down to the office tomorrow and grab
Okay.
them, but I'll have them.
Okay, thank you.
So I think I'm on for Sunday to introduce the multicultural events. And I have some information that Commissioner Jen forwarded to me. So I think there'll be some introduction. If we have a canned elevator speech, I need to know it. And if we don't, then I'll work on it. To do the preliminary introduction of the dancers and a mariachi band. And so that should happen in the neighborhood of 2 to 4 p.m., as I understand it. So, and although the booth might not be present because we'll close it down on Saturday evening, maybe 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 I can pick some information up Saturday before you close so that I could have it available on Sunday.
We do have the booth reserved through River City Days. I mean,
You're going to-
we
okay.
planned for 3 days.
All right,
I plan on being there on Sunday.
right. I'm
So-
scheduled to be there, but I didn't
Right.
know if we had the
So I don't
booth.
think you'll need to pick things up beforehand.
Never mind.
Um,
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it would be nice to kind of mention where we're located and tell
Sure.
people to stop by.
Okay,
I don't know of an elevator speech for you, I'm sorry. We'll,
I'll work on it.
and we have a couple days, so we can all work on it. But when I had spoken with Tim Siebenaller, he said that it would be great if we could just give a little speech about the Human Rights Commission in Chaska, and then why it's important for us to be a part of this Cultural Heritage Festival Day, celebrating the different cultures in our community. And then I gave you some background on the different
Yeah.
musicians, so, you know, it doesn't have to be a long speech, it
No.
just has to be a quick little intro, so don't work too hard.
Fair enough.
But thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Like I said, the volunteer schedule that Kaylee had made, the Google Doc, is up. And we do have a couple of slots that still have openings. If anyone wants to fill in on Saturday evening or Saturday noon to 3, there are spots there. I plan to be there, but it would be nice if someone else could help out. I know a few of us are at a lot of things that day, but even if we could stop by and give each other breaks, that'd be great. So, otherwise, I think that's about all we have for River City Days right now, and then we'll just go with the flow when we get there. Next, we can talk about the Martin Luther King breakfast. And we've decided that that's going to be when we have our Human Rights Award presentation, I think. So it is important to kind of talk about that at River City Days so that hopefully we'll get some ideas and nominees of who is interested in that award. I know Kaylee and Sarah had talked about some ideas for speakers. Do you have any updates on that?
The couple of folks at Minnesota Housing that I talked to all had commitments on that morning, so,
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that, it sounded like Donzel had some leads, and I
Yeah,
don't know,
I
Sarah, what
wrote a
happened.
note from an email he sent me here. He said, he had spoken with Corey Mogsat at lunch and said that he could probably round up a few folks that were either current or former clients at lunch that would be willing to share their stories at the breakfast. He also said that he has connections to some other homeless and housing-related organizations that he could connect us with if we were having trouble finding like a keynote speaker. But he thought it would be powerful to have some actual people from the community that went through this or are experiencing it now could share their stories. Sometimes it seems like it's something we don't want to talk about, but there are people who do want to share their stories and let you know that it's a big part of this community, even if we don't always see it, so.
I followed up with Carver County Community Development. Potentially, there are 2 individuals who have expressed a positive to being part of a panel to talk about, where they came from, and what they've been able to accomplish since they've been in affordable housing. So I don't know if we are thinking if we could do a panel discussion. I was going to, after River City Days, bring that up as a topic of discussion, but that might be a way to not put just the spotlight on an individual, but on different individuals that would perhaps not be as uncomfortable for them in that sense of being a presenter.
And I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to maybe have a longer discussion about it at another meeting. Because, you know, we don't want to be here all night and we all have a busy weekend coming up. So if everyone is in agreement with that, maybe we should just put that on the agenda for another meeting.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions about Martin Luther King breakfast?
This is a little bit of a somewhat related, I guess. At the last meeting, I think it was Kaylee who suggested we put together a more formal marketing strategy for the Human Rights Award in particular. And so I've got an outline here, and I think what I'll do is I'll share it with you all electronically following up. It's our communications manager, Kevin Wright, has put together a pretty detailed timeline of topics and specific dates that he can post to help promote both the Human Rights Commission and raise awareness of its existence. And in addition to that, you know, highlight the Human Rights Award and try to encourage nominations from the community. So what his thought is since we meet on Thursdays, to do every Thursday between now and November, when the Human Rights Award nominations are due, to do a post on every Thursday that's coming from the Human Rights Commission. So he's got a number of different areas that he's suggesting could be touched on. Leading up to the human rights, or to the River Cities Days, he's going to actually do a post to encourage the public to stop by the booth. Following up, then you could do a recap of the experience of the booth, and you know, for folks who weren't able to make it, encourage them to visit the website and look at the Human Rights Award form that's there. And then going forward, he's got a little bit of a mix of things that he would highlight or suggest that be highlighted. One is to cover all the previous winners and just do a little bit about, you know, what those groups do, or what they did in the community. In the case of like the Blessed Bee, for example, is no longer running as the Blessed Bee, but certainly did make an impact when it existed. So you can still talk about why they got the award. So that's one piece. Another would be, you know, could do a couple things about homelessness in Chaska, since that's a topic that the Human Rights Commission is wanting to highlight this year. Later on, once we get a little bit more information about the MLK banquet, since that's where the award would be presented, we could, you know, maybe do a couple posts about the presenters, or you know, if there's a panel or a keynote, whatever those things end up being, we can promote that and try to, you know, get some attendance there. So it's really a mix of different things, but trying to always bring it back to awareness of the Human Rights Commission, and also promoting folks submitting for you know, a nomination for the award. So I can provide you those details there. So we're really thinking that using a combination of the website, Facebook, we also have Twitter and Instagram accounts, so we can take advantage of those things. Mike, who oversees the cable station, can do graphics that really would, you know, pair with what we're posting on every other outlet. So he can do that. So really try to coordinate those things. A couple other things that Kevin brought up. You may think about the downtown's farmers market every Wednesday evening, an opportunity that could present. Jeff Philippek, you know, that's done by the Southwest Metro Chamber. So Jeff, being a former member of the Human Rights Commission, I think there's probably an opportunity to have a discussion with him about maybe there could be a booth at one or more of the remaining farmers market events on Wednesday night, where you could talk to people and engage with folks. So something to think about. And then the other would be, I think think it's in September, we're having a downtown block party. So last year we did grand opening for 2nd Street, was a downtown block party event. It was pretty well attended. We had a mix of different musicians and performers that were there. Some of the farmers market vendors set up booths on that day. There was some food out on the street, some artists had presence, a number of different activities went on. So that's another community event that's coming up that maybe it would make sense for you all to think about having a booth at that too. So that is going to be really sponsored, and it's led by the Downtown Business Alliance. But you know, I can definitely talk to them about you guys having a presence there, and I don't see why that would be an issue. We're pairing it this year, partnering with Angel Fest with Guardian Angels, and so those events will really play together as, you know, a singular weekend, kind of working together. So hoping to grow both sides of things by working and coordinating together. So. But yeah, that's kind of the highlights of what we pulled together. I'll provide you with that detailed write-up.
That's
that Kevin
great
put
news.
together.
I mean, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin's the man.
Communication staff.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, the Human Rights Commission is going like multimedia all of a sudden.
There we go.
Does anyone have any new business tonight?
I have one item. So Monday evening, council will have a meeting on July 30th. They will be interviewing a person by the name of Ellen Bean, who has put in her, I guess, nominated herself, I suppose, to be appointed to the Human Rights Commission. So this would be the position that was vacated when Jeff left. She would then, if appointed, would become an alternate number 2 on the Human Rights Commission. So Ellen Bean is her name. I don't know if any of you have met her before. I have not, but we will be interviewing her on Monday night. So.
Okay, so then she would come to the next meeting if she was.
Yep, so if she's appointed, and more often than not, folks who want to serve are given that opportunity. So yeah, you've all been through it, you know the rigorous process. But so my guess is that she would be successful in that, and so then we would definitely invite her to come to the next meeting, and then assuming she's available, she could. One other piece, Sarah, I think at the last meeting you asked about maybe getting training on open meeting laws and those sorts of things. So we did a little bit of talking about that internally. We think it's a fantastic idea. But the timing might be best situated after November, when after the elections have occurred, and we know what our council is going to be looking like and all of that, and then to schedule something that would be really a joint meeting for all the commission members, including council members, existing and new, to come and get that training all together. So we can work with the League of Minnesota Cities to get something scheduled, hopefully late this year, early next year, something like that.
Can I add to that too? The other night I was talking to a Carver County Commissioner and asked him about that. Not officially, I was not having that be our end all, be all, that was the rules we had to follow. But it did give me a little bit better understanding in that he said if 2 commissioners meet together somewhere, they can talk about anything. They can talk about voting topics if they want. If it's more than 2, you can talk about things even related, like operational things that happen in the commission, but you may not talk about voting. That violates the open meeting rules. But if you are out with 3 or more people from the commission and you're not even talking about the commission, that's not an issue from what he understood. So, if 5 of us are hanging out at River City Days, that shouldn't be an issue unless we're talking about some voting topic at that time. So let's avoid that.
Yeah, so it really, the threshold sort of becomes when there's a quorum present. So that's, there's 7 voting members on the Human Rights Commission, so if you've got 4 folks that are gathering, you've got a quorum, in which case technically that should be something that's posted. Now, there's incidental situations where you may just all happen to run into each other and no one's gonna.
Or at school functions, or at, you know.
So, but you just gotta be
Fire and Ice
cognizant of that.
Festival or something.
You know, the other thing is electronic communication. Good rule of thumb is not to reply all as a commission member. So when I send something out, just, you can reply to me or reply to Jen, or just do, you know, one-on-one kind of conversations. Once you start replying all, then you can start getting into, you know, some things that can happen there. But I think, you know, if you're just trying to really play it safe, I think those are probably some good practices to be thinking about. You know, if you're replying all and saying, I can't attend the meeting on Thursday, you're probably going to be okay. But just to play it safe and raise no question whatsoever, that's one way to do it, is just reply to me.
I just feel better in general keeping the commission stuff at the commission meetings.
Yep, and that's really the intent of
yeah.
open meeting laws in general, you know, keep the business happening in the light of public, and not behind closed doors. That's really what it's about, so.
Do you think we need to post or notify you if, like Judy and Lisa and I met to plan some of the River City Days stuff?
So that wouldn't be a quorum, so you're,
okay.
You're okay.
Okay.
What we do at the council is, since there's 5 members on the council, sometimes there's luncheons or, you know, presentations or whatever it might be. Sometimes 3 of them are in attendance or more, and so we'll just post that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's how we handle those situations. But you know, with the Human Rights Commission, I don't think we've had a whole lot of situations where that's happening outside of a meeting.
Well, I think it'll be helpful if later in the year we can have someone come clarify things. Just
Yeah, and there's been a lot of new faces on both the Human Rights Commission and all the other commissions in the city. And, you know, November we'll see what happens with the council too. So, you know, maybe there will be new faces, maybe there won't, but even if there aren't, it's always good to get that refresher.
when we were at that summit a couple months ago, one thing they had mentioned is some cities have a yearly training session for all commission and city staff. Just, even if you're new or old, you know, they just do this yearly training in January. And I think, I don't know if Chaska has ever thought about that, but I think it could be helpful to give like a broad overview to anyone who's involved in different city organizations. You know, I was never in anything like this before I became a member of this, and so, you know, to just get a primer on it,
Sure.
you know, would be helpful, I think.
Sure. Sort of a lay of the land in addition to open meeting law.
What are
training, that kind of stuff.
expectations, and, yeah.
Nate, do we have a commissioner's handbook?
We do have a
It's
commissioner's
online.
handbook.
Okay,
Did you receive one when you?
no?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry for that oversight. I can get that to you.
Okay, that'd
Yeah,
be great.
I'm glad you asked. Does anyone else need one? You need
I
one?
think I got one either.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'll make sure y'all get one. I'm glad you said something.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, any other new business?
I have one.
Oh, Judy.
Oh, good. Okay. Sure.
She has a handbook.
Oh, you have a handbook. Oh, I
Yes.
thought you were
Oh.
saying you had something for new business.
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Does anyone have any other new business?
I do not.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Got it.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay, we will see everybody at River City Days this weekend.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.